Are you looking for a strong Pokemon to add to your current playthrough? Or perhaps you're thinking of adding that perfect normal type Pokemon that will balance out your entire competitive battling team? Well, in either case, in this video, I'm going to be listing what I consider to be the top 5 normal type Pokemon and why I think you should be using them on your team. The rankings in this video are based on a number of battling prowess factors, such as strength and versatility. This ranking is not simply an ordering of highest base stat total, but takes more into consideration like move pools and abilities, as well as how stat distributions fit with the moves the Pokemon can learn. For this list, I'll only be considering fully evolved, non-legendary normal type Pokemon, since I don't want to have to rank anything based on whether or not it can hold Eviolite. That's enough introduction, let's get right into it. Coming in at the bottom of my list is Pyroar. Pyroar is a dual normal fire type Pokemon that was introduced in Generation 6 and evolves from Litleo at level 35. The Pokédex refers to Pyroar as the Royal Pokemon, and its design is based off that of a ferocious lion. The shape of Pyroar's mane actually changes based on whether it's a male or a female. Based on its type combination, Pyroar is defensively weak to 4 types, those being Fighting, Water, Ground, and Rock. It is resistant to 6 types, those being Bug, Fairy, Steel, Ice, Grass, and Fire, and it's immune to the Ghost type. The reason I'm including Pyroar on this list is because of its incredibly high special attack and speed stats. The overall base stat total of Pyroar is 507, tying it with Surfetch'd and bringing it 3 total points in below Excadrill. Its base special attack stat comes in at 109, putting it on par with Charizard. And not only is it a stronger special attacker than Charizard, but it's also faster, boasting a base speed of 106. And with the remaining stat distribution, it certainly seems capable of taking a few hits too. I want to take a moment to address why Pyroar is not higher on this list, and to do that we're going to have to take a look at its move pool. If you're using Pyroar on your team, it's unlikely you're using it to dish out any physical damage, so you're more likely going to be using special moves. However, the only special moves Pyroar learns are of only 4 types: Fire, Normal, Dark, and Grass. And the only Grass type move it learns is Solar Beam. While Solar Beam technically covers most of Pyroar's weaknesses, it's only super viable if you run it in harsh sunlight. In doubles, it would be optimal to run a Solar Beam Pyroar with a Pokemon with the ability Drought. However, the only Pokemon that's non-fire type that has this ability is Groudon, and Groudon is banned in most competitive formats. So instead, pairing Pyroar with a Pokemon that knows the move Sunny Day, and that can also handle its fighting type weakness, seems to be the most ideal strategy. And so for that reason, I think that Comfey is the best fit to pair with Pyroar. Comfey can learn Sunny Day, and then using Growth can shoot off super effective and boosted Dazzling Gleams at fighting type Pokemon. So in the sunlight, Growth actually boosts your special attack by 2 stages instead of 1. Overall, Pyroar is a super cool Pokemon with great battling capabilities, and if I were playing through Pokemon X and Y right now, I'd definitely want one on my team. I hope to see it brought back into the series in Generation 9, since we missed out on this Royal Pokemon in Generation 8. When you first clicked on this video, you probably weren't expecting to see Kamala on this list, and yet here we are. So why do I think that Kamala belongs among the best of the best normal type Pokemon? I'll be sure to explain myself in a bit, but first let's cover a bit of the basics about Kamala. Kamala is a single-stage, pure normal type Pokemon introduced in Generation 7, whose design is based off of a koala. The Pokédex calls it the drowsing Pokemon, in reference to the fact that it is never awake. And in fact, because it's never awake is the exact reason that I think it deserves to be on this list. See, Kamala is the only Pokemon to have the ability Comatose, which means that Kamala is considered to be permanently asleep. That means status conditions that don't like to stack, such as poisoning or paralysis, won't affect Kamala. However, this also has the negative side effect of meaning that Kamala can't heal using rest. It cannot be put to sleep twice, so to say. While it is considered to be asleep at all times, Kamala is still able to use its moves as normal, and can even use moves like Sleep Talk and Snore without having to set up Sleep first. However, this also means that Pokemon with the move Dream Eater, or Pokemon with the ability Bad Dreams such as Darkrai, won't need to set up against Kamala in order to use their moves or abilities respectively. So this ability seems to include a mixture of both good and bad effects, but personally I believe that the good effects far outweigh the bad ones. It's not that often that you see a Pokemon using Dream Eater. There are, however, other reasons why I think Kamala also deserves to be on this list, beyond just it having the ability Comatose. Kamala has a base stat total of 480, with 115 and 95 points distributed into its attack and special defense respectively. While its HP, defense, and speed may be lower than ideal, This Pokemon is both able to inhibit special sweepers and land some powerful punches. I've read a bit into some possible sets that can be used on Komala in a singles format, which also means that these formats and these styles can be adapted into your actual playthroughs. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those here, and see one of the main moves that I saw on Komala listed in these sets was Bulk Up. Bulk Up is a move that is able to raise both the attack and defense stats of a Pokemon that uses it. This means that Komala is both going to get stronger in resisting its fighting type enemies, which are usually going to use physical type moves, as well as stronger in dishing out attacks. So if you pair this with a move like Earthquake, it's going to be able to dish some serious damage. Now, if you really want to try to go all out, you can use a Thrash set with Komala, but be warned, Comatose won't prevent you from being confused. Number 3 on my list is Beware, and the fact that this monster of a Pokemon made it onto this list should surprise absolutely no one. Beware is a normal and fighting type Pokemon that evolves from Stuffle at level 27 and was introduced in Generation 27. Don't let its cute and fluffy appearance fool you though. Even the Pokédex of the Alola region itself references many cases of injury and death coming upon trainers of Beware. That may fit lore-wise, but how does it hold up with its actual stats? Beware has a base stat total of 500 even, only 7 less than Pyro that I mentioned earlier. With a base attack stat of 125, this Pokemon is right up there in strength with Marshadow and Incarnate Form Landorus. And its base 120 HP provides enough bulk to ensure that it gets some really devastating hits in. Another interesting thing about Beware is that 2 different Beware with 2 different abilities may not be weak to the exact same types. The reason for this is because Beware's 2 main abilities are Klutz and Fluffy. While Klutz only makes it to where Beware can't use a held item, Fluffy actually has an extra interesting effect in that it introduces a fire-type weakness. However, in exchange for that weakness, Beware is also twice as resistant to contact-based moves. This ability is a major bonus for Beware, especially in Doubles format where it can be paired with a super fast Water-type Pokemon to take out any potential fire hazards for the Fluffy Pokemon. Beware also gets access to a variety of different moves that can help you prepare against its weaknesses. For example, if you are particularly worried about flying types, you can use Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, or Rock Slide. Iron Head can be used to deal with any pesky fairy types, Zen Headbutt for fighting types, or Darkest Lariat for fighting types. It can even handle its own against fire types and a wide host of other types through the use of Earthquake. And beyond all this variety, there's an even greater pool of normal, fighting, and even ghost and dragon type moves that Beware can learn to further improve its versatility. Unfortunately, Beware is a bit lacking in the special defense and speed areas, which means that its fire-type weakness for a Fluffy Beware is very detrimental to its performance in battle. This is why it's critical to pair it with a Pokemon that is able to take out fire types quickly before they can even land a hit. You might also want to pair Beware with a Pokemon that can handle special attackers in general, since Beware is built more as a physical tank and not a special tank. Coming in at number 2 is the lazy Pokemon Slacking. Anyone who's played through a Hoenn region game knows exactly why this Pokemon made the list. For those unaware, Slacking has a base stat total of 670, which is on par with many legendaries and even surpasses some of them. Slacking is a pure normal type Pokemon and is the final stage evolution in the Slakoth line, evolving from Vigoroth at level 36. With such a high base stat total, it's clear that there's got to be something holding this Pokemon back, and that something is its ability Truant. Truant is an ability that makes it so Slacking cannot use moves on 2 consecutive turns. If Slacking makes a move on turn 1, then turn 2 you'll get a message that says Slacking is loafing around. There are a few techniques to get around this ability though, and so I'm going to be detailing 2 of them, one that works for singles and then one that works for doubles. For singles, it's possible to lead with a Pokemon with the ability Mummy. Mummy's ability is that whenever a Pokemon that's opposing the Pokemon with Mummy strikes it with a contact move, the attacker's ability will be changed to Mummy itself. So what that means is, if your Pokemon with Mummy is holding an eject button, and it's struck by a contact move from the opponent will have the ability Mummy after that attack, and your Pokemon with Mummy will be sent back to you. From there, you can send in Slacking, and then use a contact move against the enemy to gain the Mummy ability yourself, thereby removing Truant from Slacking entirely. This strategy poses a few challenges, however. First, if the enemy Pokemon uses a non-contact move, you'll essentially have wasted your eject button and not be able to remove the ability Truant from Slacking. Second, if the enemy decides to switch out their mummified Pokemon, which they're likely to do once they see that you bring out your slacking, then their ability will revert back to normal and they'll no longer have Mummy. Now, this can be avoided if slacking knows Pursuit, which can be taught onto it as an egg move pre-Generation 8. However, that also takes up an extra slot that could have been used on slacking for a stronger move. As for the final issue with this battle strategy, similar to the last issue, if slacking itself is switched out of battle, it will also regain the Truant ability. Now, in terms of the double strategy, this is the one I'd most likely prefer to use if I was going to use a slacking. All you have to do for this is have a Pokemon paired with slacking that knows the move Gastro Acid. Gastro Acid actually suppresses the ability of the Pokemon that it's used on, and so if your Pokemon uses Gastro Acid on slacking, its Truant ability will no longer become effective. And so that means that you'll be able to move every turn instead of every other turn. If I were to use slacking, this is definitely the format I would want to do it in. I definitely want to do it in doubles, so I can use Gastro Acid and avoid many what-if scenarios that might have arisen if I had played in singles, for instance. Once you manage to get Truant off slacking, this Pokemon becomes an absolute behemoth, with a base attack stat of 160, base speed stat of 100, and more than decent physical bulk. The main hole in its armor after Truant is removed is its weak special defense. This Pokemon can easily be bested by a few well-timed Aura Spheres. If it weren't for the complications that arose due to Slacking's Truant ability, it would easily top the list. However, because Truant is so complicated to deal with, I decided to make it number 2 instead. We're getting ready to reach the top of the list, but before we do, I want to give a bit of a shout out to an honorable mention, Heliolisk. See, the last slot on this list was a very contentious battle between Heliolisk and Pyroar. However, I decided to give the edge to Pyroar since it's better able to handle super effective hits against itself more often than not, and it has a higher base stat total than Heliolisk. Pyroar is only slightly slower than Heliolisk, and even though it does have a lower special defense, its HP and defense more than make up for it in protecting it from super effective moves from things like ground-type and rock-type attacks. The primary super effective dangers to Heliolisk are fighting-type moves and ground-type moves, both of which are made up of a majority of physical-type attacks. Since Heliolisk has a weaker defense stat than Pyroar, it's less able to handle these super effective hits coming from enemy Pokemon, and that's why I decided to give Pyroar the slot 5 and name Heliolisk as our honorable mention. And finally, the moment everyone's been waiting for. The number 1 Pokemon on my best normal-type list is Snorlax. Snorlax is a pure normal-type Pokemon introduced in Generation 1 that has played a very significant role in halting the progression of many players throughout the series. However, beyond this Pokemon's love of a very good nap and lots of food, this thing is an absolute powerhouse. While falling short of Slacking's base stat total by 130 points, Snorlax is more versatile in that it doesn't have a detrimental ability. In fact, Snorlax's 2 ordinary abilities are actually pretty decent. Immunity prevents Snorlax from being poisoned, while Thick Fat gives it an extra resistance to fire and ice-type moves. Snorlax serves most teams as a special tank, being able to absorb moves like Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, while also being able to return with high damage due to its 110 base attack stat. The only detriments to Snorlax that I could find that might be able to knock it down a peg or two on this list would be its 65 base defense stat, and its lack of access to physical moves that aren't of the normal or fighting type. At least it gains access to Earthquake, Crunch, and Rock Slide. However, all other potential physical moves that Snorlax can learn that aren't of the normal and fighting types, and that also aren't these 3 moves, have a base power of less than 60. One other issue is that with its low base defense stat, Snorlax doesn't have a way to reliably take out and survive hits from fighting-type Pokemon, which typically use physical moves. While its HP can help it take a few hits, it's important that Snorlax is eventually switched out when these physically offensive Pokemon are brought into play. Or, if playing doubles, you might consider adding a Flying, Psychic, or Fairy type to potentially take out any dangerous fighting-type counters to Snorlax. Despite these potential pitfalls, Snorlax is still able to handle itself very well in battle, and doesn't have nearly as many performance roadblocks as many other normal-type Pokemon do, both on and off this list. And so for that reason, it's obvious why I had to choose Snorlax as the top normal-type Pokemon of this list. Maybe one day in the future when Generation 9 or 10 comes around, we'll be able to find a new king of the normal types. For now, that crown must be bestowed onto Snorlax. Is there a normal-type Pokemon that I didn't talk about on this list that you think deserves to be here? If so, leave a comment below and explain why you think it deserves to be on my list. If you've made it this far in the video, I have a sneaking suspicion that you enjoy the Pokemon content that I create. If that's the case, I've gone ahead and left another video on screen now that you might want to check out if you want to see more from me. Alternatively, if you really like the content, you can go ahead and drop a subscribe down below. I really appreciate it and it'll help you stay notified of when I make new content. As always, thanks for watching!